My unfaithful wife laughed while telling me she's dating another man, so I left her, blocked all her accounts, and now she's forced to shamefully beg me for money. Let her get on her knees and plead. Subreddit, I'm a 34-year-old guy living in Tampa, and I've been married to Victoria for 2 years now. She's 32 and used to work in some marketing position that she always described as complete bullshit. About 8 months into our relationship, she decided to quit her job entirely. She told me she wanted to follow her passion and start her own jewelry business, which seemed like a reasonable dream at the time. I supported her decision because, hey, if she had the drive and motivation to build something of her own, why not give it a shot? Meanwhile, I was running my own plumbing business, working long hours every day to keep everything afloat financially. I genuinely thought she was building something real and meaningful with her time. I was also taking care of our daughter Maya, while handling the daily grind of managing jobs, dealing with clients, and making sure the bills got paid on time. It turns out Victoria was doing other things with her newfound free time, and I should have realized something was seriously wrong much earlier than I did. The signs were all there, but I chose to give her the benefit of the doubt. Victoria started getting all dressed up for what she called shopping trips that would somehow take 4 hours, only for her to come back home with maybe a single bag of oranges or some other random item that definitely didn't require 4 hours to purchase. Suddenly, she needed to attend Pilates classes 5 times a week, which seemed excessive, but I wasn't going to be the controlling husband who questioned every activity. Her phone was always placed face down and kept on silent mode, which struck me as odd. But again, I'm not her father, and I figured if she had something important to tell me, she would tell me when she was ready. Boy, did she ever tell me. It was a Thursday morning around 10:30 a.m. when everything came crashing down. Maya was at school, and I was sitting in my home office going through invoices from the previous week's jobs. I had just finished completing a bathroom renovation for this wealthy family who lived across town, and I was calculating profit margins, trying to figure out if I could afford to invest in some new equipment for the business. You know, just normal Thursday morning responsibilities that come with running your own company. That's when Victoria walked into my office without knocking or even bothering to say good morning. She just leaned against the doorway with her arms crossed like she was about to deliver some kind of epic, life-changing speech. She was wearing this smug little smile on her face that I should have immediately recognized as a major red flag, but at the time I was still processing what was happening. "I've been seeing Brandon again," she announced casually, as if she was telling me about the weather. "Yeah, my ex-boyfriend. What are you going to do about it?" Just like that? "No, honey, we need to talk," or "I made a terrible mistake and I'm so sorry." There was no attempt at explaining herself or showing any remorse whatsoever. It was straight-up challenge mode, like she was deliberately daring me to have a complete mental breakdown or start begging her to stay and work things out. I'm sitting there with my pen still in my hand, staring at this woman I had been married to for 2 years. The mother of my daughter was standing there like she had just told me she changed the television channel. There was zero guilt in her expression, zero shame about what she was admitting, just pure arrogance and what seemed like satisfaction at finally getting this secret off her chest. Most guys would have completely lost their shit right there in that moment. They would have started screaming, throwing things around the office, demanding to know why she did it and how long it had been going on and all that emotional stuff that accomplishes absolutely nothing. But I've learned over the years that when someone shows you who they really are, you should believe them the first time. What Victoria was showing me was crystal clear. She had zero respect for me as her husband, zero respect for our marriage as an institution, and zero respect for our family unit that included Maya. So I looked up from my paperwork, gave her a little nod, and said simply, "Got it." That's it. 2 words, completely calm and matter-of-fact. You should have seen the look on Victoria's face when I gave her that completely anticlimactic response. She had been expecting fireworks, tears, maybe even me getting down on my knees and begging her to reconsider this decision. Instead, she got the most underwhelming reaction possible, which completely threw her off her game and left her standing there not quite knowing what to do next. She actually smirked even wider after my response, like she was genuinely proud of herself for not getting any kind of emotional reaction out of me. "I didn't think you'd make a scene," she said, as if my lack of drama was somehow disappointing to her. Then she grabbed her jacket, the expensive one I had bought her for Valentine's Day the previous year, and walked straight out the front door. She was probably heading directly to see the same jerk she had dated before me, the same guy who had cheated on her 4 years ago, which is exactly how we ended up together in the first place. It's funny how these things come full circle when people don't learn from their mistakes. The second I heard her car pull out of the driveway, I picked up my phone and called my lawyer. Here's what Victoria didn't understand about me, and what she was about to learn the hard way. I don't make emotional decisions when it comes to serious life situations. When someone declares war on my family, I don't get mad and start acting irrationally. I get strategic, and I start planning my next moves carefully. Victoria had just declared war on everything I had built and worked for over the years. The thing about being a plumber is that you learn to plan for problems before they actually happen. You check for potential leaks twice before you install something once. You prepare for the worst-case scenario because that's how you avoid disasters down the line. And Victoria had just become my worst-case scenario that I needed to handle professionally. The crazy part about all of this was that she really thought she held all the power in our relationship. She thought that because we were married, she could do whatever she wanted, and I would just have to sit there and deal with it like some kind of doormat. She probably figured that even if I did decide to leave her, she would automatically get half of everything in the divorce proceedings and receive alimony payments on top of that. What Victoria didn't know was that I had been preparing for this exact possibility since the day we got engaged. Not because I wanted our marriage to fail, or because I was planning for it to end, but because I'm not an idiot, and I've seen too many good men get completely destroyed by women who wait until they're comfortable and secure before showing their true colors. You see, my cousin Dave got absolutely destroyed in his divorce about 12 years ago. I watched that entire nightmare unfold from the front row, and it was brutal. He lost his house, his business, and they even took his dog away from him. I made myself a promise after witnessing that complete disaster. Never again would I let something like that happen to me or anyone in my family. So when I started getting serious with Victoria, my mom and I had a very important conversation about asset protection strategies. We decided that everything valuable would go into her name for legal purposes. The house, the plumbing business, my truck, even Maya's college fund. All of it was transferred to my mother's ownership. On paper, I'm just some guy who works for his mom's plumbing company and happens to live in her house to help take care of her as she gets older. Was this strategy smart? Hell yes, it was brilliant. Was it completely legal? Absolutely. We made sure every single document was properly filed and legitimate. As I sat there in my office listening to the silence of my house after Victoria left, I felt something I didn't expect to feel. Relief. Not relief because my marriage was over. That part actually sucked, especially when I started thinking about how this whole situation would affect Maya and disrupt her stable home life. But I felt relief because I finally knew exactly where I stood in this relationship. No more wondering if Victoria was really working late on her business when she said she was. No more pretending that everything was fine when it clearly wasn't fine at all. Victoria had just saved me years of living a complete lie, and she had absolutely no idea what was coming next. David has been my lawyer for about 9 years now, and this guy has seen it all when it comes to messy divorce situations. He doesn't sugarcoat anything or try to spare your feelings. When I called him that Thursday morning to explain what had just happened, his first question wasn't about my emotional state or whether we should try to save the marriage through counseling. It was straight business. "How long do you want to wait before serving her with papers?" he asked, after I explained the entire situation to him. "Give me 4 weeks," I told him. "I need to get some ducks in a row first before we move forward with this." David actually laughed at my response. "Let me guess. Asset protection? Something like that?" He knew about my setup with my mom because he's the lawyer who helped us structure everything legally when I first started making decent money with the business. This guy has absolutely no love for cheating spouses, especially ones who think they're automatically entitled to half of everything their husband worked for. 4 weeks it is," David confirmed. "I'll have everything ready to go when you give me the signal. And Tyler, document everything during this time period. I mean everything. Her behavior, her schedule, her interactions with Maya. We're going to need all of it." That's when I made my second important phone call of the day. "Hey, Mom, you got a few minutes to talk?" I asked when she picked up. "Yeah, Victoria just told me she's cheating with her ex-boyfriend, and I'm going to need your help with something pretty important." There was about 3 seconds of complete silence on the other end of the line before she responded with, "I never liked her anyway. I'll be there in an hour." My mom had seen right through Victoria from day one, but she had kept her mouth shut about her concerns because she wanted me to figure it out myself. She's a smart woman who understood that if she had said anything negative about Victoria early on in our relationship, I might have gotten defensive and pushed back against her opinions. Instead, she just watched carefully and waited patiently for me to see the truth. "What do you need me to do?" she asked when she showed up at the house that afternoon, ready for whatever plan I had in mind. I need you to start being present here on a regular basis, I explained. Pick up Maya from school, help with dinner preparation, stay over sometimes when it makes sense. I want it clearly documented that you're the stable family presence in this house while Victoria's running around town doing whatever she's doing. My mom smiled that evil little smile she gets when she's plotting something strategic. Oh, I can definitely do that. Should I keep a journal of everything that happens? Absolutely, I confirmed. Write down everything. Over the next 4 weeks, my mom basically moved into our house. She would show up every morning after I left for work, clean the house thoroughly, do the laundry, and prep dinner for the evening. When Maya got home from school each day, Grandma was there waiting with snacks and homework help, creating the kind of stable routine that every kid needs. When Victoria finally rolled in around 8 or 9 p.m., looking like she had been shopping all day or attending important business meetings, my mom would just smile sweetly and ask how her day went. Victoria absolutely loved this arrangement at first because it made her life so much easier. It's so nice having your mom help out like this, she told me one evening. I can finally focus on my business without worrying about all the house stuff and Maya's schedule. Her business, right? It certainly gave her something to keep busy with during the day, and more importantly, it was all established in her name. I had actually helped her set up the LLC, get the proper business license, and open a separate bank account for all her business transactions. All of it was registered under her social security number, which would become very important later on. What Victoria didn't realize during those 4 weeks was that my mom was carefully documenting absolutely everything that happened in our household. Who made Maya breakfast every morning? Mom did. Who helped with homework and school projects? Mom did. Who was actually running the household and maintaining stability while the wife was out building her brand? Mom was doing all of it. Meanwhile, Victoria was getting more and more comfortable with her new routine and lifestyle. She would leave the house around 11 a.m. for what she called her business meetings, and come back home looking all glowy and satisfied with herself. She started wearing new perfume that I had never smelled before and bought herself some new clothes that appeared in her closet, all purchased with her own credit card, of course. The best part of this whole situation was watching Victoria try to justify her daily activities to my mom. I'm just trying to network and grow my business, she would explain when Mom would casually ask about her day. Tyler wants me to be independent and successful. My mom would just nod sympathetically and smile. That's wonderful, dear. Independence is so important for a woman to have. What Victoria heard was a supportive mother-in-law encouraging her entrepreneurial spirit. What my mom was really thinking was that this girl was hanging herself with her own rope and didn't even realize it was happening. About 2 weeks into this arrangement, I came home from a particularly long job site to find my mom and Maya baking brownies together in the kitchen. Maya was completely covered in flour and laughing hysterically at something my mom had said to her. It was one of those perfect family moments that you want to remember forever. Except the wife and mother was nowhere to be found during this bonding experience. "Where's Victoria?" I asked, looking around the kitchen. "Important business dinner," my mom replied without looking up from the brownie mix she was stirring. She said she'll be late tonight. A business dinner at 7 p.m. on a Friday evening? Sure, that sounds completely legitimate and professional. That night, after Maya had gone to bed, my mom and I sat at the kitchen table going over all the notes she had been keeping. She had been meticulously tracking everything. What time Victoria left the house, what time she came back, her mood and demeanor when she returned home, whether she interacted meaningfully with Maya, and whether she contributed to any household responsibilities or decisions. "She's getting sloppy with her story," my mom observed, flipping through her detailed journal. Tuesday, she came home with her shirt buttoned wrong. Yesterday, she completely forgot that she had promised Maya she would help with her science project. "Good," I replied. "Let her get comfortable and careless. The more documentation we have, the better our case will be." Here's what most guys don't understand about divorce strategy, and it's something that could save them a lot of heartache and money. You can't just react emotionally and file papers the same day you find out she's cheating on you. You need to build a solid case that will hold up in court. You need to show a clear pattern of behavior over time. You need to demonstrate who has actually been the responsible parent and who has been off playing around with their ex-boyfriend instead of taking care of their family obligations. The other thing I was doing during those 4 weeks was getting my entire financial house in perfect order. I made sure all my pay stubs clearly showed me as an employee of my mom's company, not the owner. I made sure my tax returns accurately reflected my actual W-2 income, not the business profits that were going to my mother, as the legitimate business owner. I made sure every single asset that mattered was properly documented as belonging to my mom, with all the legal paperwork to back it up. On paper, I was just a guy who worked in plumbing and lived with his mom to help take care of his aging parent. It actually looked quite noble when you read it that way. The fact that I was also running most of the day-to-day business operations was simply me being a good son and helping out with the family company that my mother owned. By week 4, Victoria was barely even pretending to be a wife and mother anymore. She would come home at 10 or 11 p.m., grab a quick shower, and go straight to bed without engaging with anyone. She stopped asking me about my day or how work was going. She stopped checking on Maya's homework or getting involved in any school-related activities. She stopped contributing to any household decisions, even simple ones like what to have for dinner or what movie to watch. She was mentally and emotionally checked out completely from our family life. This was absolutely perfect for building our case. The Friday before I planned to have Victoria served with divorce papers, I was sitting in my office when she poked her head in casually. "I'm heading out for the weekend," she announced, as if she was telling me about a trip to the grocery store. "I'm going to stay with Brandon. I'll be back Monday." I looked up from my computer screen, nodded calmly, and said, "Cool." The sheer audacity of her announcement didn't even shock me anymore at that point. She was so confident that I would just sit there and take whatever she decided to do, like she was doing me some kind of favor by announcing her weekend plans at all instead of just disappearing without explanation. I texted my mom immediately after Victoria left the house. "She's gone for the weekend with her boyfriend. Time to pack up all her stuff." Saturday morning at 8 a.m. sharp, my mom pulled into the driveway with a truck full of moving boxes. She had been waiting 4 weeks for this exact moment, and honestly, so had I. We both knew this day was coming, and we were more than ready to execute our plan. "You ready to get this cheater out of your house?" she said as she walked through the front door with her arms full of packing supplies. I absolutely love my mom. She doesn't mess around when it comes to protecting her family. We had planned this entire operation during the week while Victoria was busy with her business meetings. Victoria was supposed to be with her lover boy until Monday, which gave us plenty of time to pack every single thing she owned and get it completely out of the house. The moving company was scheduled to arrive at 1 p.m., and I had paid extra for weekend service without asking any questions about why we needed such quick turnaround. "Start with the bedroom," I told Mom. "I'll handle her office space where she keeps all her business stuff." Victoria had taken over one of our spare bedrooms for her jewelry business, and I have to admit she was actually pretty organized with her business supplies and inventory. Too bad she couldn't organize her priorities or her marriage with the same level of attention to detail. As I was boxing up her supplies and equipment, I started thinking about the irony of this whole situation. Here she was making these little earrings and necklaces, trying to build some kind of independent income stream and career, while simultaneously and completely destroying the stable family income that was actually supporting her lifestyle and giving her the freedom to pursue these hobbies. It was a really smart business strategy when you think about it. About an hour into our packing marathon, Mom called out from the bedroom. "Tyler, come look at this right now." I walked into the bedroom to find her standing next to Victoria's nightstand, holding this little wooden jewelry box in her hands. It was one of those decorative things she had bought at some craft fair a few months back. She had told me it reminded her of her grandmother or some other sentimental story that I didn't pay much attention to at the time. "Check the bottom compartment," Mom said, holding the box out to me. I opened it up and discovered there was a whole stack of photographs tucked under the velvet lining. And these weren't just any random photos. We're talking about full-on couple shots of Victoria and her ex-boyfriend at restaurants, at his apartment, in his car, making out like they were teenagers again. Some of the photos looked recent, but others had to be from several months ago based on Victoria's appearance and the clothes she was wearing. "Look at the dates written on the back," Mom instructed me. I flipped through the photos and my blood started boiling as I read the handwritten dates. There was one photograph from March, right around the time I was in the hospital recovering from that serious back injury I got on a job site. I was laid up for 3 weeks, couldn't work, could barely walk without severe pain, and this woman was supposed to be taking care of me and Maya during my recovery. Instead, she was out taking romantic photographs with her ex-boyfriend while I was home eating pain pills and wondering why she seemed so unusually happy and energetic all the time. "This one's from April," Mom said, pointing to another photograph in the stack. "Wasn't that when you took Maya to Disney World for her birthday?" I remembered that trip perfectly. Victoria had said she couldn't come with us because she had too much work to catch up on with her jewelry business. She claimed she needed the quiet time at home to focus on some important orders and get caught up on her inventory. She made it sound like she was making a real sacrifice by staying behind while Maya and I went on this special father-daughter trip. Turns out she needed the quiet time to screw her ex-boyfriend in our house while we were gone having fun at Disney World. She was probably laughing about what a complete sucker I was, thinking I was being considerate by giving her space to work on her business. Save all of these photographs, I told Mom, trying to keep my anger under control. David's going to absolutely love having this evidence. Mom grinned and carefully slid all the photos into a manila envelope. Evidence folder number 1, she said with satisfaction. We kept working through Victoria's belongings, and the more we packed, the angrier I became. Not sad or heartbroken like you might expect, but genuinely angry at the level of deception that had been going on. This woman had been living a complete double life, lying directly to my face every single day for months, and probably laughing about what an oblivious fool I was. In her closet, we found clothes that I had never seen her wear around the house. There was lingerie with the price tag still attached, and a whole drawer full of makeup that was way more expensive than anything she usually purchased for herself. All of it had been bought within the last few months, and clearly none of it was meant for me to see. She's been preparing for this situation for quite a while, Mom observed as she folded up some dress that probably cost more than my monthly truck payment. This isn't some sudden decision she made. She's been planning her exit strategy and building up to this moment. That's when it really hit me what had been happening. Victoria didn't just wake up one Thursday morning and spontaneously decide to tell me about her affair with Brandon. She had been working up to this confrontation for months, maybe even longer than that. She had been testing the waters to see how much she could get away with, building up the courage to make her move, and probably calculating how she could maximize her benefits in the divorce. The only problem with her entire plan was that she had completely underestimated who she was dealing with. She thought she was married to some naive guy who would just roll over and let her take everything. At 1 p.m. sharp, the moving truck showed up exactly as scheduled. This was perfect timing, and everything was going according to our plan. While the movers were loading up all of Victoria's belongings, Mom and I did one final sweep of the entire house to make sure we hadn't missed anything that belonged to her. "Where do you want all this stuff delivered?" one of the movers asked me as they were finishing up with the boxes. I handed him a piece of paper with Victoria's parents' address written on it. "Everything goes there," I instructed. "If anyone asks questions, just tell them it was a scheduled move that was planned in advance." Mom pulled out this little note she had written during our packing session and carefully taped it to the top box where it would be clearly visible. The note read, "She's your problem now. Good luck. Tyler's mom." I had to laugh when I saw that. My mom definitely doesn't mess around when she's protecting her family, and she's not subtle about expressing her feelings. About an hour later, Victoria's mom texted me asking, "Tyler, what is going on? Why did you send all of Victoria's things to our house?" I replied simply and directly, "She's cheating on me with her ex-boyfriend Brandon. She told me herself before driving off to spend the weekend with him." No follow-up text came after that response. Just complete silence. That's the kind of silence that happens when even the people who always make excuses for someone's behavior finally run out of ways to defend them. By 3 p.m., every single trace of Victoria had been completely removed from the house. All of her belongings were loaded up and shipped off to her childhood bedroom at her parents' house, where she could figure out her next steps. The house felt different immediately after they left. Cleaner somehow, even though Mom and I had just spent 7 hours making a complete mess while packing everything. It was like a bad smell had finally been aired out of the rooms. "How do you feel?" Mom asked, as we stood in the living room looking at the Victoria free space around us. "Relieved," I said, and I absolutely meant it. You see, I had been living with this low-level stress for months without even realizing it was affecting me. I was always wondering where Victoria really was when she said she was working. I was always getting half answers to simple questions about her day. I was always feeling like something was off in our relationship, but not being able to put my finger on exactly what was wrong. Now I knew exactly what had been wrong the entire time, and more importantly, I was doing something decisive about it. "She's going to completely lose her mind when she comes home tomorrow," Mom said with a satisfied smile. "Yeah, she definitely is," I agreed. "But by then, it'll be too late for her to do anything about it, because the divorce papers will already be filed, the financial disclosures will already be submitted, and the custody documentation will already be in motion." Victoria thought she was coming home from a romantic weekend with her boyfriend to continue living her comfortable double life. Instead, she was coming home to face the real consequences of her choices for the first time. Mom made us some lunch, and we spent the afternoon going over our complete game plan for Monday night when Victoria would return. Mom would be present in the house when Victoria got back, both as a witness to whatever happened and as backup support for me. We would have the envelope ready with all the legal documents properly organized, and most importantly, we would stay completely calm and let the paperwork do all the talking for us. She's going to try to make you feel guilty, Mom warned me as we reviewed our strategy. She's going to cry and blame you and try to make it seem like this whole situation is somehow your fault instead of hers. I know she will, I replied. But I've got 4 weeks of detailed documentation and a whole envelope full of photographs that clearly tell a different story. Good, Mom said firmly, because this is war now, and you better be ready to win it completely. I was absolutely ready. I had been ready since the exact moment Victoria walked into my office and threw down the gauntlet with her casual confession and challenge. The only difference was that she had declared war on the wrong guy, and she was about to find out just how serious a mistake that was. Monday night at 9:15 p.m. I know the exact time because I was watching the clock, waiting for Victoria's grand return from her romantic weekend getaway. Mom was in the kitchen making Maya's favorite spaghetti dinner, and Maya had no idea what was about to unfold in our house. I wanted to keep it that way for as long as possible because kids shouldn't have to deal with adult drama if it can be avoided. "Dad, when's Mom coming home?" Maya asked, twirling pasta around her fork in that careful way kids do when they're concentrating. "Should be any minute now, sweetheart," I told her, trying to keep my voice normal and calm. What Maya didn't know was that when Mom came home, she would be walking into a completely different situation than the one she had left on Saturday morning. No more playing house and pretending everything was normal between us. It was time for some serious reality and consequences. At 9:18 p.m., we heard the familiar sound of her car in the driveway. Victoria always drove this little Honda that needed a new muffler, so you could hear her coming from 3 blocks away. The engine shut off, the car door slammed shut, and then we heard her footsteps on the front porch. "Hey everyone," she called out, trying to sound casual and normal. "I'm back home." That's when she walked into the kitchen and saw Mom at the stove, me sitting at the table with a manila envelope in front of me, and Maya eating dinner like nothing in the world had changed. "What's going on here?" Victoria asked, looking around the room with obvious confusion. "Why is your mom making dinner?" Mom didn't even turn around from the stove where she was stirring the sauce. "I live here now, sweetie. Someone needs to take care of this family properly." The look on Victoria's face was absolutely priceless. It was like she had walked into the wrong house or stepped into some alternate reality where nothing was the way she had left it. Victoria dropped her overnight bag and started looking around the kitchen more carefully, probably trying to figure out what exactly was different about the scene in front of her. "Where's all my stuff from the living room?" she asked with growing concern. "My candles, my magazines, all my decorative things?" I slid the manila envelope across the table toward her. "Have a seat. We need to talk about some important things." She picked up the envelope but remained standing there in her weekend getaway clothes. New jeans I had never seen before and some fancy top that probably cost more than I make in a day. She looked like she had enjoyed a really nice time with her boyfriend over the weekend. "What is this supposed to be?" she said, opening the envelope and starting to pull out the papers inside. "Divorce papers, officially filed with the county clerk this past Friday," I told her calmly. Her facial expression went from confused to shocked to completely pissed off in about 4 seconds flat. "You can't just file for divorce without telling me first. That's not how this works." "Actually, I can and I did. It's completely legal." Mom finally turned around from the stove, wooden spoon still in her hand, and looked directly at Victoria. "Honey, you might want to sit down for this conversation. It's going to be a bumpy ride from here." Victoria started pulling more papers out of the envelope, scanning through them frantically, like she was looking for some kind of mistake or loophole that would make all of this go away. "This is absolutely insane. You can't be serious about going through with this." "I'm dead serious about every single page in that envelope." She started flipping through more papers, getting more agitated and panicked with each document she reviewed. That's when she reached the financial disclosure section, and her face went completely white as she read the numbers. "Wait a minute," she said, her voice starting to shake. "Where's all your income listed in these documents? Where are all the business assets and property we own together?" Mom chimed in cheerfully from across the kitchen. "What income? What assets? He works for me, remember? He's always been my employee." Victoria spun around to stare at my mom with complete disbelief. "That's not true at all. He owns the plumbing business. We've been building this together." "No, sweetie," Mom replied with a smile. I own the business. I always have. You can check the original LLC paperwork if you don't believe me. The beautiful thing about our entire setup was that it was completely legitimate and legal. Mom had started the plumbing business 22 years ago when she was still married to my dad. When Dad died 12 years ago, she kept the business running and hired me as her general manager. On paper, I was just a well-paid employee helping my widowed mother keep the family business afloat and successful. Victoria kept reading through the documents, flipping back and forth between different pages like she was trying to solve some impossible puzzle. This financial statement says you only make $48,000 a year, she said, pointing at the numbers. That's exactly what my W-2 tax form says, yes. But that's completely impossible. We live in a nice house, we have nice things, we go on vacations. Mom walked over and put her hand on Victoria's shoulder in this fake, sympathetic way that was absolutely perfect. Oh, honey, that's because I've been letting you both live here rent-free for years. I own this house, remember? It's been in my name since before you two even met each other. You could literally see Victoria's brain trying to process this information and figure out what it all meant for her situation. For 2 entire years, she had been living in what she thought was her marital home, building up equity and planning her big divorce payday where she would get half of everything. Now she was finding out that she had been living in her mother-in-law's house the entire time, with no ownership stake whatsoever. This can't be legal, she said, her voice starting to shake with panic. There has to be some law against this kind of arrangement. It's completely legal, I assured her. My lawyer made absolutely sure of that before we structured anything. Victoria flipped to the next section of the divorce papers, and that's when she saw the real kicker that made her situation even worse. The part about her business income, her assets, and her new financial responsibilities as the higher-earning spouse. Why does this document say that I'm the higher earner in this marriage? She asked, staring at the numbers in disbelief. What Victoria was slowly realizing was that while she thought she was building a cute little side business to keep herself busy and maybe make some extra spending money, she had actually been establishing herself as the financially independent spouse in our marriage. And in divorce court, the financially independent spouse doesn't get alimony payments. They have to pay them. Hold on just a minute, Victoria said, sitting down hard in one of the kitchen chairs as the full reality hit her. This says that I owe you money. Monthly spousal support payments. That's correct. Based on our documented income differential and the fact that I've been the primary caregiver for Maya while you've been busy building your business empire. Victoria was having a complete mental breakdown about 4 feet away from where I was sitting calmly. This is complete bullshit. You make way more money than I do, and everyone knows that. Not according to my official tax returns, I replied. And that's all the family court cares about when they're making these decisions. She kept flipping through the legal papers frantically, looking more desperate and panicked with each page she reviewed. The asset division section, the custody arrangements, the financial obligations, every single section contained worse news for her than the last one. Victoria looked around the kitchen like she was seeing it for the first time and trying to understand where she fit into this picture. Her personal belongings were gone from the house. Her stepdaughter was eating dinner like nothing unusual had happened. Her mother-in-law was acting like she owned the place, which she actually did. And her husband was sitting there calm as could be with a stack of legal papers that basically ended her comfortable life as she knew it. Where's all my stuff? She finally asked, the reality starting to sink in. Your parents' house, Mom replied cheerfully. We thought you might be more comfortable staying there while you figure out your next steps and make some important decisions about your future. The manila envelope slipped out of Victoria's trembling hands, and papers scattered across the kitchen floor around her chair. She just sat there staring at the documents like they were written in a foreign language that she couldn't understand. Victoria looked up at me with this expression I had never seen on her face before. Not anger, not sadness, but pure fear and panic, because for the first time in months, she wasn't in control of the situation or calling the shots. We can fix this, Victoria said desperately, reaching across the table toward me with pleading eyes. I made a mistake, but we can work through it together. Marriage counseling, whatever you want. I pulled my hands back away from her reach. You didn't make a mistake, Victoria. You made a choice. Actually, you made a lot of deliberate choices over several months. This is just the consequence of those choices. The next few weeks were absolutely beautiful to watch unfold. Victoria hired herself a lawyer, some guy who probably advertised on late-night television commercials, and spent God knows how much money trying to figure out how to get herself out of the massive hole she had dug for herself. Her first strategic move was trying to claim that I was hiding assets and lying about my true income. Her lawyer demanded financial records going back 6 years, business documents, bank statements, and basically everything he could think of to prove that I was being dishonest about my financial situation. The problem for them was that everything checked out exactly like it was supposed to, because it was all completely legitimate. You see, Mom didn't just put everything in her name on paper as some kind of shell game. She actually owned all of it legally and properly. The business, the house, the vehicles, all of it belonged to her with proper documentation going back years. I had been paying her rent for living in her house, working as her employee with proper W-2 forms, and helping her manage the daily business operations as her general manager. All of this was thoroughly documented with years of paperwork, tax filings, and official records. When Victoria's lawyer dug deep into our finances, he found exactly what he was supposed to find. A guy who made decent money working for his mom's plumbing company, and a wife who had been building her own independent jewelry business for over a year. "This doesn't make any sense," Victoria kept saying during their strategy meetings. "He has to have hidden money somewhere. There's no way this is his real financial situation." But there was no hidden money anywhere. Every dollar I had ever earned was properly accounted for and documented. The only difference was that instead of buying assets in my own name like an idiot, I had been smart about protecting everything from the very beginning. The second phase of Victoria's legal strategy was trying to prove that I wasn't actually the primary caregiver for Maya, and that she had been equally involved in parenting responsibilities. This is where Mom's detailed documentation became incredibly valuable for our case. She had kept meticulous records of who picked Maya up from school every day, who helped with homework and school projects, who was present for parent-teacher conferences and school events, and who was notably absent from most family activities. The pattern was crystal clear. Me and Mom were consistently present and involved, while Victoria was frequently missing in action. Victoria's lawyer tried to argue that just because she was building a business didn't mean she was neglecting her parental duties or failing as a mother. Unfortunately for them, Mom had photographic evidence to back up her documentation. She had lots of photos from important events. Maya's school play where Victoria was a complete no-show. Maya's soccer games where Mom and I were cheering enthusiastically from the sidelines, while Victoria was nowhere to be found. And family dinners where it was consistently just the three of us because Victoria had other priorities. But the real nail in the coffin for Victoria's case was when her lawyer requested character witnesses to testify about our family dynamics. Mom had quietly been building relationships with our neighbors, Maya's teachers, and other parents from school activities throughout our marriage. When these people were asked about our family situation and daily routines, the picture they painted was pretty clear and consistent. They described a hard-working dad who was always present for his daughter, a devoted grandmother who had stepped up to help with childcare and household management, and a mom who always seemed to be too busy with other things to be present for important family moments. "She's not a bad person," one of Maya's friend's mothers told the court investigator. "She just seemed distracted all the time, like she had other priorities that were more important than being with her family." Other priorities? Yeah, you could definitely say that was an accurate assessment of the situation. Meanwhile, I was getting regular updates from David about how Victoria's legal case was completely falling apart. "Her lawyer's trying everything he can think of," David told me during one of our meetings. "Asset hiding, parental alienation claims. He even tried to argue that you were emotionally abusive to explain her behavior." "But there's no evidence for any of those accusations?" I asked. "None whatsoever. In fact, all the evidence points in the opposite direction." "What about the spousal support calculation? Is that holding up?" David grinned widely. "That's actually the best part of this whole case. Based on her documented business income over the past year and your documented salary as an employee, she owes you approximately $2,100 per month for 3 years. $2,100 per month for 3 years. We're talking about a total of $75,600, which was more than enough money to pay off my truck completely, rebuild my savings account, and give me a nice financial cushion to start over with my life. Her lawyer's strongly advising her to accept the settlement offer," David continued, "because if this actually goes to trial, it's only going to get worse for her financially." But Victoria wasn't ready to settle or accept reality yet. She was still convinced that somehow, someway, she could turn this entire situation around in her favor. That's when she made her biggest mistake of the entire process. She tried to use Maya as leverage in the custody battle. The court-ordered custody evaluation was scheduled for a Thursday morning. Victoria showed up dressed like she was going to church, trying to look like Mother of the Year for the appointment. The court-appointed psychologist was this no-nonsense woman in her 50s who had probably seen every manipulation tactic and sob story in the book. "Tell me about your typical day with Maya," the psychologist asked Victoria during their private session. According to Victoria's version of events, she was basically super mom, always available for her daughter, always nurturing and supportive, always putting Maya's needs first above everything else in her life. The only problem with her story was that when the psychologist asked Maya the same questions about their daily routine, the kid told a completely different version of events. "Grandma picks me up from school every day," Maya said matter-of-factly, "because mom's usually busy with work stuff. Grandma helps me with my homework and makes snacks. Dad comes home and we eat dinner together as a family. Sometimes mom's there for dinner, but sometimes she's not because she has meetings." When the psychologist asked Maya about her favorite family memories, she talked about baking brownies with grandma, going to the park with dad, and movie nights where it was usually just me, dad, and grandma watching together, because mom had business meetings to attend. Out of the mouths of babes, as they say. Kids don't lie about their daily experiences, and they don't sugarcoat things to protect adult feelings or make situations seem better than they really are. The psychologist also noticed something very telling during the supervised visit between Victoria and Maya. Victoria seemed more interested in asking Maya questions about me and mom than actually engaging with her daughter and building a genuine relationship. This was classic manipulation behavior, trying to gather information and intelligence rather than focusing on meaningful parent-child bonding. "Does Daddy seem sad these days?" Victoria asked Maya during one of their supervised sessions, clearly fishing for information she could use in court. "Not really," Maya replied honestly. "He smiles more now, and Grandma makes better pancakes than you do." Absolutely brutal honesty from a kid who was just telling the truth about her daily experience. Children have no filter when it comes to comparing the adults in their lives, and Maya's simple observations spoke volumes about the real family dynamics. After the custody evaluation was complete, David called me with the official results. "Primary custody goes to you with visitation rights for her," he announced. "Every other weekend and one evening per week. She's also responsible for paying child support on top of the spousal support. Child support payments from the woman who thought she was going to take me to the cleaners and walk away with half of everything I had worked for." The irony was absolutely perfect. But here's the thing that really killed me about this whole situation. Victoria's boyfriend Brandon, the great love of her life that she had thrown away her marriage for, started getting real scarce once the legal bills started piling up and the reality of her financial situation became clear. I heard through the grapevine, you know how small towns work, people talk and word gets around, that Brandon had been telling people that the divorce situation was too complicated and messy for his liking. He said he needed some space to think about their relationship and figure out what he really wanted. Translation: he was completely done with Victoria now that she came with serious baggage and monthly financial obligations to her ex-husband. Turns out that dating a married woman for secret hookups and exciting affairs is fun and thrilling, but being with a divorced woman who owes her ex-husband money every month and has limited custody of her own child is a lot less appealing and romantic. The final court hearing was scheduled for the following month. Victoria's lawyer had basically told her that she had two choices at this point: accept the settlement offer, which included spousal support payments, child support payments, and limited custody arrangements, or go to trial and risk losing even more than she already had. "What do you think she'll decide to do?" Mom asked me as we were discussing the upcoming hearing. "She'll fight it," I predicted confidently. "She's too arrogant and stubborn to accept that she lost this battle completely." And I was absolutely right about her personality, because even with everything stacked against her and all the evidence clearly showing that she had destroyed her own life, Victoria still thought she could somehow convince a judge that she was the victim in all of this. That turned out to be a very big mistake on her part. Court day finally arrived, and when all was said and done, I walked out of that courthouse with everything I had hoped for and more. I was awarded full primary custody of Maya, $2,100 per month in spousal support payments, $850 per month in child support, and most importantly, a calm sense of closure, knowing that this chapter of my life was finally over. 7 months later, life is absolutely fantastic. Maya is doing great in school. Her grades have actually improved since the divorce was finalized, probably because she has a more stable home environment now. Mom has basically moved in permanently with us, which I don't mind at all since she's been such an incredible help with everything. And I'm back to making my full salary now that the divorce proceedings are complete, and I don't have to worry about financial disclosure complications. That $2,100 per month that Victoria sends me has been going straight into Maya's college fund and my retirement account. It's actually been a nice financial boost that's allowed me to plan better for our future and build up some real security. Victoria, from what I've heard through mutual acquaintances, is working 2 jobs now trying to keep up with her monthly payment obligations to me. The jewelry business folded completely within a few months of the divorce being finalized. It turns out that it's pretty hard to be creative and build a business when you're constantly stressed about money and struggling to make ends meet. She moved into some rundown apartment across town and drives a car that's older than our marriage ever was. The great love of her life, Brandon, completely ghosted her about 3 weeks after the divorce was officially final. Apparently, dating a broke single mom with limited custody rights wasn't quite the fairy tale romance he had imagined when they were sneaking around behind my back. A couple of months ago, Maya came home from one of her scheduled weekend visits with Victoria and told me something that absolutely made my entire year. "Dad, Mom asked me if I wanted to come live with her instead of staying here with you and Grandma." "What did you tell her?" I asked, curious about how Maya had handled that conversation. "I told her no," Maya said simply. "I like living here with you and Grandma. We have more fun together, and everything feels more normal." Out of the mouths of babes, once again. When kids feel safe and secure, they know exactly where they belong. Last week, I got a text message from an unknown phone number that I didn't recognize. The message read, "Can we please talk? I know I made mistakes, but maybe we can work something out. I miss my family." I read the message, realized it was obviously from Victoria trying to reach out, and simply blocked the number without responding. Some bridges in life are meant to stay burned, and this was definitely one of them. The whole experience taught me something valuable about standing up for yourself when someone tries to take advantage of your trust and kindness. Victoria thought she could have her cake and eat it too. Keep the security and comfort of being married, while also having her exciting affair on the side. She thought I would just sit there and take whatever she decided to dish out. She was wrong about that, and now she's living with the consequences of underestimating the wrong person. Sometimes the best revenge really is just living well and moving forward with your life.